The phone rang at 3:14 a.m., jolting me awake. My hand fumbled in the darkness, instinctively reaching for it before the second ring could wake Mark or Lily. "Sarah? It's Judy from Central. Megan called in sick again. We're desperate for someone to cover her shift." I glanced at my sleeping husband, who hadn't stirred despite the intrusion. My body ached from yesterday's double shift, and I'd only fallen asleep 2 hours ago. But I knew what my answer would be before I even spoke. "I'll be there in 30 minutes. As I slipped out of bed and into my scrubs, a notification lit up my phone. "Payment processed, $2,800 to Wilson Family Construction." Another cash infusion to my father-in-law's struggling business, money that Mark believed came from his own moderately successful contracting work, but that actually came from my endless extra shifts and weekend work. That moment perfectly captured my life. Silent sacrifices made in the shadows, holding up a family that never saw me as its backbone. I became a nurse because I wanted to help people. I never imagined that my biggest caretaking role would be propping up my husband's entire family financially while remaining completely invisible. The first rays of dawn barely pierced the horizon as I pulled into the hospital parking lot. Central Memorial was my second home. Sometimes I felt I spent more hours under its fluorescent lights than in my own house. The emergency department was already bustling when I arrived, the night shift looking haggard and grateful to see me. "Sarah, you're a lifesaver," Judy said, handing me a clipboard with tonight's cases. "Literally." I smiled weakly, fighting the exhaustion that had become my constant companion. Just doing my job. My job. If only they knew that this was just one of my jobs. My other full-time position was financial support system for the entire Wilson family, a role no one acknowledged or even knew existed. By 7 a.m., I had helped stabilize a cardiac patient, treated 3 car accident victims, and comforted a frightened child with a broken arm. My official shift was supposed to end at noon, but when Dr. Reynolds asked if I could stay until 6 p.m. to cover for another staff shortage, I nodded despite the protest from every muscle in my body. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Mark. "Mom and Dad are coming over for dinner tonight. Can you pick up something nice? Dad got that big contract." I closed my eyes briefly, steadying myself against the nurse's station. That big contract was actually a small job that wouldn't cover half of their monthly expenses. The rest, over $2,000 this month alone, had come from my overtime pay, funneled through a separate account I'd set up years ago to quietly keep his family's construction business afloat. "Everything okay, Sarah?" asked Delana, one of the younger nurses. "Fine," I replied with the automatic smile I'd perfected. "Just making dinner plans." When I finally arrived home at 7:15 p.m., Mark's parents' car was already in our driveway. I sat in my car for an extra minute, preparing myself for the performance ahead. The grocery bags on my passenger seat contained an expensive roast I couldn't afford and a bottle of wine that cost more than I should have spent. But appearances mattered to the Wilsons. "There she is," my father-in-law boomed as I walked through the door, as if my lateness was a personality quirk rather than a necessity. "The working woman." "Sorry I'm late," I said, carrying the groceries to the kitchen where Mark was opening beers, not cooking. The ER was short-staffed again. "You work too hard," my mother-in-law, Diane, said without looking up from playing with 5-year-old Lily. "I don't know how you do it. I could never leave my family like that." The comment stung as it always did, carrying the implication that my work was a selfish choice rather than what kept this very gathering possible. Mark kissed my cheek but didn't offer to help with dinner. "Dad's project is really taking off," he said proudly. "The Wilson name is going to be known all over the county soon." I nodded, hiding my face in the refrigerator as I put away extra groceries. Last week, I'd transferred another $1,500 to keep that project from collapsing after a supplier threatened to pull out over unpaid invoices. "That's wonderful," I said, the lie familiar on my tongue. Over dinner, my father-in-law regaled us with exaggerated stories of his business prowess while Mark looked on admiringly. My brother-in-law Jeff called during dessert, and the speakerphone filled our dining room with his complaints about his landlord raising the rent. "Don't worry about it," Mark said immediately. "We'll help you out this month." I focused intently on cutting Lily's cake into smaller pieces, avoiding eye contact with anyone. That help would be another $800 from my dwindling savings account. "You're too generous, son," William Wilson said, clapping Mark on the shoulder. You get that from me. Later that night, after everyone had left and Mark and Lily were asleep, I sat at our small desk balancing 3 different accounts. My primary nursing salary covered our mortgage, utilities, groceries, and Lily's preschool. My overtime and weekend shifts went into what I called the Wilson Family Support Fund, money that mysteriously appeared in various family members' accounts or as loans from Mark that were never repaid. The third account, hidden even more deeply, held my secret: $2,742 saved over 3 years for a nursing conference in Paris. It would be my first trip abroad, my first real break in years. The conference would teach advanced emergency response techniques, but more importantly, it represented 5 days just for me. No double shifts, no financial acrobatics, no pretending. I'd almost canceled it twice when financial emergencies arose in the Wilson family, but something made me hold firm. Perhaps it was self-preservation, or perhaps it was the growing realization that my sacrifices were not just unappreciated, they were completely invisible. The following Monday, I was changing 4 bags when my phone rang. Mark's sister Bethany was crying about her car being repossessed. I don't know what to do, Sarah. I need my car for work and the bank won't listen. I stepped into the supply closet for privacy. How much do you need, Beth? $3,400 for all the back payments. I know it's a lot, but Dad said maybe you guys could help since Mark is doing so well with his contracts. I closed my eyes, feeling the familiar weight of responsibility settle on my shoulders. That amount would nearly empty my Paris fund, but I heard myself say, I'll see what I can do. After my shift, I drove to the bank and withdrew $3,400 from my conference savings, leaving just enough for a basic flight and budget accommodations. I deposited the money into Bethany's account through the ATM, making it appear as though it came from her brother. That night, Mark mentioned his sister had called him grateful for his generosity. I told her that's what family does, he said, beaming with pride for a gift he hadn't given. I smiled tightly. Yes, that's what family does. 6 more months of extra shifts followed. I worked holidays, weekends, and overnight rotations. I covered for colleagues with sick children or vacations while rarely taking time off myself. My body operated on autopilot, fueled by hospital coffee and the brief moments with Lily before bedtime. The Wilsons' financial needs continued to grow. Jeff needed money for a security deposit on a new apartment. Mark's parents' roof began leaking, requiring expensive repairs. Mark himself wanted to invest in his father's new expansion plans, which I knew were built on financial quicksand. Through it all, I kept one thought alive: Paris. The conference was now just 2 weeks away. My replacement ticket was booked, my schedule approved months in advance. For the first time in years, I would step away from the hospital and the Wilson family's needs. I don't understand why you need to go to this thing, Mark said the night before my departure as I packed my suitcase. Can't you learn whatever it is here in the States? It's an important international conference, I explained for what felt like the 100th time. The techniques they're teaching could help save lives. But for a whole week, who's going to take care of Lily? And Mom wanted us to help with their anniversary party this weekend. I zipped my suitcase closed with more force than necessary. Your mother can plan her own anniversary party. And you're going to take care of Lily because you're her father. I've arranged everything at work, everything at home, and everything for Lily. All you have to do is be a parent for 5 days. Mark looked wounded and I immediately felt guilty despite knowing I shouldn't. I've never been anywhere, Mark. Not once. I work double shifts every week. I haven't had a vacation in 5 years. I need this. He didn't argue further, but his silence contained a rebuke that followed me as I checked and double-checked my travel documents. That night, I slipped out of bed again to look at our family finances. I transferred enough money to cover any emergencies that might arise in my absence and wrote detailed instructions for Mark about Lily's schedule, her medications for allergies, and emergency contacts. I held my daughter extra long at bedtime, inhaling the sweet scent of her hair and promising to bring her back something special from Paris. As she drifted off to sleep, clutching her favorite stuffed rabbit, I wondered if I was being selfish. But another voice, one I rarely allowed myself to hear, whispered that perhaps I deserved this small break. Perhaps the woman who silently carried her family deserved 5 days to remember who she was beyond her role as their invisible backbone. As I finally climbed into bed beside my sleeping husband, I allowed myself to feel a flicker of excitement about tomorrow's flight. For once, just once, I would put myself first. I had no way of knowing that when I returned from Paris, there would be nothing left to come home to. The plane touched down at Charles de Gaulle Airport under a gentle Parisian rain. I pressed my forehead against the cool window, watching droplets race down the glass as the reality settled in. I was actually here. After years of putting everyone else first, these next 5 days belonged to me. "First time in Paris?" asked the elderly woman beside me, noticing my wide-eyed wonder. "First time anywhere," I admitted, surprising myself with the confession. "I'm a nurse. I'm here for a conference, but honestly, I think I'm here for me too." She patted my hand with unexpected tenderness. "Then make it count, dear." The terminal bustled with cosmopolitan energy, conversations in a dozen languages swirling around me as I clutched my worn suitcase and followed signs to the taxi stand. Everything felt dreamlike, suspended between the exhaustion of my journey and the surreal realization that an ocean now separated me from my responsibilities. My modest hotel room in Montmartre offered a sliver of a view, just enough to glimpse the Sacré-Cœur Basilica if I pressed against the window at precisely the right angle. The room was tiny by American standards, but to me it was perfect. A space that existed solely for my comfort with no one else's needs to consider. I unpacked methodically, hanging my conference clothes in the narrow closet before sitting on the edge of the bed to call home. It was early morning in Missouri, and I pictured Mark struggling to get Lily ready for school without my usual orchestration of their morning routine. The phone rang 4 times before Mark answered, his voice thick with sleep. "Hey, it's me. Just landed safely," I said, calculating the time difference in my head. "Sorry if I woke you." "It's fine," he mumbled. "Lily wants to talk to you." My daughter's voice came through small and distant. "Mommy, when are you coming home? Daddy doesn't know how to make pancakes right." I laughed, feeling the familiar tug of guilt. "In 5 days, sweetie. Remember how we counted on the calendar? And Daddy can learn to make pancakes. You can help him." "I guess," she said doubtfully. "Did you see the Eiffel Tower yet?" "Not yet, but I promise to take a picture when I do." When Mark returned to the phone, his tone was clipped. "My mom's coming over to help with Lily. She doesn't think I can handle it alone." Of course Diane would step in, positioning herself as the savior while subtly undermining me for leaving. "That's helpful of her," I said carefully. "Yeah, well, someone has to be here," he replied, the implication hanging between us. After we hung up, I stood at the window watching Paris unfold beneath an overcast sky. For a fleeting moment, I considered booking an earlier return flight, the habitual response to any hint of family discord. Then I remembered the elderly woman's words, "Make it count." I grabbed my coat and stepped out into the Paris rain. The nursing conference occupied most of my days with seminars on trauma response techniques and workshops on patient care innovations. I absorbed everything eagerly, taking detailed notes and engaging with colleagues from around the world. For the first time in years, I was recognized for my expertise rather than being invisible. Dr. Elise Laurent, a renowned emergency medicine specialist, even singled out my question during a panel discussion. "That's precisely the kind of thinking we need more of," she said, pointing to me in the audience. "Too often we overlook the critical role of first response assessment in trauma outcomes." The validation sent warmth coursing through me. Here, thousands of miles from home, someone saw value in my thoughts. During coffee breaks, I found myself engaged in stimulating conversations with peers who treated me as an equal, not as an accessory to someone else's life. Evenings were mine alone. I wandered the streets of Paris, allowing myself small indulgences: a café crème at a sidewalk bistro, a used paperback from a bookstall along the Seine, a scarf from a street vendor that cost less than lunch but made me feel transformed. I took countless photos for Lily, capturing carousels and patisserie windows and street performers. Each night I called home. Each call grew progressively stranger. On the second evening, Mark sounded distracted, voices murmuring in the background. "Is that your mom?" I asked. "No, just the TV," he answered too quickly. "How's Paris?" "Beautiful. The conference is amazing." "How's Lily?" "Fine. She's sleeping. Listen, I've got to go. We'll talk tomorrow." The third night Lily answered, her voice excited. "Mommy, Uncle Jeff is staying with us. And Grandma brought her special cookies." My stomach tightened. Jeff's apartment troubles had apparently resulted in him moving in, something Mark hadn't mentioned. Can I talk to Daddy? He's in the garage with Uncle Jeff. They're being secretive, she whispered conspiratorially. When Mark finally came to the phone, he brushed off my questions. Jeff needed a place to crash for a couple days. It's not a big deal. And your mother? She's helping out. Someone has to watch Lily while I work. The fourth evening, no one answered my calls. I tried 3 times, each unanswered call ratcheting up my anxiety. Finally, I texted Mark. Is everything okay? Can't reach you or Lily. His response came an hour later. Fine. Battery died. Talk tomorrow. That night, I barely slept, my final day in Paris tainted by growing unease. During the closing conference session, my phone vibrated with a text from Jenny, our next-door neighbor. Sarah, something weird is happening at your house. Lots of people coming and going. Everything okay? I stepped out of the seminar, heart racing, and called her immediately. Jenny, what's going on? I'm not sure, she said hesitantly. There's been a lot of activity. Mark's family has been there constantly. Yesterday they were carrying boxes out to a truck. I thought maybe you were renovating or something, but it felt off. Boxes? What kind of boxes? Like moving boxes, Sarah. And I overheard Diane saying something about finally getting that woman out of their lives. I'm sorry, I didn't want to worry you, but it doesn't feel right. My legs nearly buckled beneath me. I leaned against the wall, struggling to process her words. Sarah? Are you there? Yes, I managed. Thank you for telling me. I'm coming home tomorrow. Could you keep an eye out until then? After hanging up, I returned to the conference room in a daze, physically present but mentally racing through possibilities, none of them good. The closing remarks and farewell reception passed in a blur. That night I tried calling Mark repeatedly. Each call went straight to voicemail. I left increasingly urgent messages, then switched to texts. Mark, please call me back. I need to know what's happening. Is Lily okay? Just tell me that much. Whatever is going on, we need to talk about it. At 3 a.m. Paris time, my phone finally rang. It was Mark, his voice cold and unfamiliar. Stop calling. You've made your choice. What are you talking about? What choice? You abandoned your family to go gallivanting around Europe. My parents were right about you all along. I sat up in bed, fully alert now. Mark, I'm at a nursing conference. You knew that. It's been planned for months. Sure, he scoffed. That's why you've been transferring money out of our accounts for years. Planning your escape. My blood ran cold. He had discovered the Paris fund but completely misinterpreted it. That money was for this trip, the legitimate conference I'm attending right now. If you've been looking at accounts, you should also see all the money I've been putting into your family's pockets for years. Don't turn this around on my family. They've seen through you from the beginning. The cold, career-obsessed wife who's never home, always working extra shifts. Now we know why. The irony was so profound I nearly laughed. Mark, please. Just tell me Lily is okay. She's with people who actually care about her, he said before hanging up. I sat motionless in the dark Parisian hotel room, shaking with a combination of rage and terror. Whatever was happening, I needed to get home immediately. I opened my laptop with trembling hands and booked the first available flight to the United States, paying an exorbitant fee for the last-minute change. As dawn broke over Paris, I packed frantically, leaving behind conference materials and unworn clothes to lighten my luggage. The city I'd barely experienced receded through the taxi window, its beauty now seeming like a cruel joke. During the 9-hour flight, I fluctuated between anxiety and anger. How had my sacrifice been so completely misunderstood? Had Mark's family finally succeeded in turning him fully against me? And most importantly, what would I find when I got home? Exhaustion and jet lag blurred the edges of reality as I finally landed on American soil. I bypassed baggage claim, carrying only my hastily packed carry-on, and headed directly to the taxi stand. The familiar Midwestern landscape flashed by the window as we drove toward my neighborhood, everything looking deceptively normal in the late afternoon light. You can stop here, I told the driver as we approached my street. Something made me want to approach on foot, to see the situation before being seen. I walked the last block, my carry-on while catching on cracks in the sidewalk. From a distance, our modest two-story house looked unchanged. The blue shutters I'd painted myself, the maple tree where Lily's small swing hung. Then I noticed the front door standing open. As I drew closer, my pace quickening, the full scene came into terrible focus. Our belongings were scattered across the front lawn, clothes in hasty piles, books splayed open and damaging in the dew, photo frames shattered on the concrete path. A hand-painted sign hung on the maple tree, "Cheater's property." I dropped my suitcase, scanning frantically for any sign of my daughter. "Lily," I called, my voice breaking as I ran toward the house. The interior was worse. Drawers emptied onto floors, furniture overturned or missing entirely. In what had been our bedroom, Diane Wilson stood directing Jeff and another man I didn't recognize as they removed our bed frame. She froze when she saw me, surprise quickly replaced by cold satisfaction. "You have some nerve showing your face here," she said. "Where is my daughter?" I demanded, ignoring everything else. "Safe with her father and his family. Where she belongs." I stepped closer, fury replacing shock. "This is my house. My name is on the mortgage. What you're doing is illegal." "Is it?" Diane's smile was venomous. "Mark found your secret accounts. Years of hidden money. All the evidence he needs to show how you've been planning to abandon your family. No judge will side with you." The profound misunderstanding would have been laughable if it weren't so destructive. The secret money she referred to was either my Paris fund or, ironically, the account I used to prop up their family finances. I pulled out my phone. "I'm calling the police." "Go ahead," Jeff said, stepping forward. "We'll tell them how you cleaned out the family accounts before running off to Europe with your boyfriend." "What boyfriend?" I asked, genuinely confused. Diane smirked. "The one you've been sending money to. Mark found the transfers." In that moment, I understood the full extent of their delusion. The transfers to Wilson Family Construction and various family members had been recast as evidence of my betrayal rather than my support. I looked around at the destruction of my home, the violation of my privacy, the utter contempt for my life and possessions. Something broke inside me, but not in the way they expected. Instead of collapsing, I felt a sudden, crystalline clarity. Without another word, I turned and walked out, stepping over the remnants of my former life scattered across the lawn. From my purse, I removed a small notepad and pen. I wrote quickly, then placed the note on top of a pile of my clothes near the driveway where Mark would see it when he returned. *, you've thrown away the woman who kept your family afloat for years. Support yourselves now. Lily and I deserve better. *. Then I walked away, already planning my next move. My daughter was all that mattered now, and I would not rest until she was safely back in my arms. Walking away from my violated home, I pulled out my phone and called Jenny, my neighbor who had warned me from Paris. "Can you pick me up at the corner of Maple and Elm?" My voice sounded strange even to my own ears, hollow yet eerily calm. "And Jenny, I need another favor. Is Mark's car in the driveway?" "No, just his mother's sedan and Jeff's truck." "Then he has Lily with him. Can you text me when they return? Don't approach them, just let me know." I waited at the park bench near the intersection, my carry-on beside me, trying to process the seismic shift in my reality. Everything I'd built, our home, my marriage, my role as mother and provider, had been reduced to scattered possessions on a suburban lawn, all because my sacrifices had been twisted into betrayal. Jenny arrived 15 minutes later, her expression a mix of concern and curiosity. "Sarah, what on earth happened?" "They think I was planning to leave them," I said, sliding into her passenger seat. "The money I saved for the conference, and the money I've been using to support Mark's family for years, they've convinced themselves it was for some non-existent affair." Jenny shook her head. "That family always gave me the creeps. Mark's mother especially. I need somewhere to stay tonight. A motel maybe." "Don't be ridiculous. You're staying with us. Tim's away on business and the kids would love to see Lily when you get her back." At the mention of my daughter, my careful composure threatened to crack. "I don't even know if that's possible. They've turned everything around. Made me the villain." "Then we'll need a good lawyer," Jenny said decisively, turning onto her street. The Clark's guest room became my temporary sanctuary, a space to shower away the travel grime and gather my thoughts. Jenny lent me comfortable clothes and made coffee while I called the police to report the destruction of my property. An officer can meet you there, ma'am, but if it's a domestic dispute with your husband, they'll likely just document the situation. My name is on the mortgage, I said. His family is removing furniture and destroying my belongings. We'll send someone out. I gave them Jenny's address for follow-up, knowing I couldn't return home tonight. My next call was to a family law attorney whose card I'd kept after helping her mother through a difficult recovery at the hospital. Rebecca Mason's office. This is Sarah Wilson. I treated Rebecca's mother last year at Central Memorial. I need legal help immediately regarding custody of my daughter. The urgency in my voice must have registered. Within minutes, Rebecca herself called back. Sarah? Kathy said it's an emergency. I explained the situation. My return from the conference, the scene at my house, the false accusations, and most importantly, Mark taking Lily. First things first, Rebecca said. You need to document everything. The state of your home, any communication with your husband or his family, evidence of your conference attendance, and the legitimate purpose of your trip. I have all my conference materials, plane tickets, everything. Good. Next, we need to establish that you haven't abandoned your child or home. That emergency petition needs to be filed tomorrow morning. Can you meet me at my office at 7 a.m.? As I ended the call, Jenny knocked softly on the door. Mark's back, she texted. Lily's with him. My heart raced. I need to see her. Sir, wait. If you go over there now, it could make things worse legally. She was right, but the thought of Lily confused and frightened, surrounded by angry in-laws feeding her lies about me, was unbearable. I'm going to drive by, I said. Just to see. I won't get out of the car. Jenny grabbed her keys without argument. We parked across from my house, staying far enough away to remain inconspicuous. The lawn was now mostly cleared of my belongings, everything either discarded or packed away. Through the living room window, I could see movement, silhouettes of the Wilson family gathered inside what had been my home. Then I saw her, my 5-year-old daughter, standing in the doorway, clutching her stuffed rabbit. Even from this distance, I could tell she'd been crying. Mark appeared behind her, placing his hand on her shoulder and guiding her back inside. She's looking for me, I whispered, a tear sliding down my cheek. She doesn't understand why I'm not coming home. Jenny squeezed my hand. Tomorrow. With the law on your side. That night was the longest of my life. I lay awake in Jenny's guest room, mentally cataloging everything I would need to rebuild. Clothes, toiletries, financial records, medical documents for Lily and myself. Most of our important papers were in a fireproof box in my closet. If the Wilsons hadn't found and emptied it. By morning I had a plan. I met Rebecca at her office as scheduled, bringing printed emails confirming my conference registration, photos from Paris that proved my attendance, and bank statements showing years of transfers to the Wilson family businesses and accounts. This is extraordinary, Rebecca said, examining the financial records. You've been supporting his entire family? Mark thinks the money comes from his contracting work. His family plays along with the fiction that his father's business is successful, but I've been keeping it afloat for years. And they accused you of having an affair based on these transfers? To their own accounts. I nodded, the absurdity of it suddenly hitting me. They saw what they wanted to see. Rebecca's eyes hardened. Let's get your daughter back. The emergency hearing was scheduled for the following day. Until then, Rebecca suggested staying away from the house to avoid any confrontation that could be used against me. I spent the day with Jenny, borrowing her laptop to contact my supervisor at the hospital and request emergency leave. Dr. Phillips, my department head, responded immediately. Sarah, take whatever time you need. Your position is secure. Let me know if you need anything else. A place to stay, help with Lily when you get her back, anything. The message moved me to tears. After years of feeling invisible, people were seeing me, really seeing me and my contributions. While Jenny was picking up her children from school, I used the quiet house to make one more crucial call. Central Missouri Bank, how may I help you? This is Sarah Wilson. I need to secure my accounts immediately. The customer service representative confirmed my identity and listened as I explained that I needed to freeze joint accounts and ensure my personal accounts were protected. Your main account ending in 4872 has been emptied, Mrs. Wilson. A withdrawal was made yesterday afternoon. My stomach dropped. How much? The remaining balance of $12,467.43. Our entire household emergency fund. Gone. I took a deep breath. What about the account ending in 9135? That account appears untouched. Current balance $7,623.19. Relief washed over me. My personal account, the one I used for my nursing career expenses and the remnants of my Paris fund, remained intact. They didn't know about it. Please secure that account with a new password and security questions. After finishing with the bank, I called my credit card companies to report potential unauthorized use and placed a freeze on my credit report. One by one, I was severing financial ties that could be weaponized against me. The next morning, Rebecca met me at the courthouse, projecting calm confidence despite the high stakes. We have truth on our side, she reminded me. And documentation to back it up. When Mark arrived with his lawyer, I barely recognized him. The man I'd married looked haggard and angry, flanked by his parents who glared at me with open hostility. Lily wasn't with them, a deliberate choice no doubt to keep her away from me. The judge, a stern-faced woman in her 60s, reviewed our emergency petitions with methodical precision. Mr. Wilson claims abandonment and financial impropriety, she noted. Mrs. Wilson claims rightful occupation of the marital home and wrongful exclusion from her child. Rebecca presented my evidence. Conference documentation, photographs time-stamped throughout my legitimate business trip, police reports of the property damage, and bank records showing my consistent financial contributions to the household and Wilson family enterprises. Your Honor, Rebecca concluded, my client has not only been the primary breadwinner for her immediate family but has also been financially supporting her husband's parents and siblings without their knowledge. The secret accounts Mr. Wilson discovered were in fact the source of funds flowing into his family, not away from them. The judge turned to Mark's attorney. Do you have evidence of this alleged affair or financial misconduct? He shuffled his papers. Your Honor, Mrs. Wilson maintained hidden accounts for years without her husband's knowledge. That alone is not illegal or grounds for denying access to her child, the judge stated flatly. Do you have evidence that these funds were used inappropriately? We believe further discovery will reveal. You don't have it, the judge interrupted. I'm granting Mrs. Wilson's emergency petition for temporary joint custody and immediate access to her child. Furthermore, both parties are prohibited from removing assets from the marital home pending a full hearing. I nearly collapsed with relief. Rebecca squeezed my arm in quiet celebration. Additionally, the judge continued, Mrs. Wilson is granted temporary exclusive use of the guest bedroom and bathroom in the marital home to facilitate custody exchanges and access to her personal belongings. Mr. Wilson's extended family members are ordered to vacate the premises immediately. Mark's face darkened with rage. His mother began to protest, but his attorney quickly silenced her. Outside the courtroom, Rebecca outlined next steps while I processed the victory. This is temporary, she cautioned. But it gives you legal access to your daughter and your home while we build the permanent case. When can I see Lily? The order states immediate access. We can go now with a police escort if necessary. 2 hours later, a police cruiser followed us to my house. Mark's parents' car was gone along with Jeff's truck. A small relief. Mark answered the door, his expression stony. Where is she? I asked, brushing past him. Daddy? Is that the police? Lily's small voice came from the kitchen. Then she saw me and her face transformed. Mommy! She flew into my arms, her small body colliding with mine with such force that I staggered backward. I buried my face in her hair, inhaling her familiar scent. I missed you so much, I whispered, tears flowing freely now. I'm so sorry I wasn't here. Grandma said you weren't coming back, Lily said, her voice muffled against my shoulder. That's not true. I will always come back to you. Mark watched from the doorway, his anger now tempered with uncertainty as he observed our reunion. That night, in the guest bedroom of what had been my own home, I held Lily until she fell asleep. The room was sparse. My personal items either packed away or destroyed, but it didn't matter. I had my daughter and legal standing to rebuild. As Lily's breathing deepened into sleep, I opened my laptop and began researching apartment listings in the area. The road ahead would be difficult, but for the first time in years I was making decisions based on what was best for Lily and me. Not for the Wilson family, not for Mark, not for anyone else. I had lost nearly everything, but I still had what mattered most. My daughter, my nursing credentials, my determination, and a small financial cushion they hadn't managed to discover. It wasn't much, but it was enough to start over. And deep inside, a new idea was beginning to take shape. One that would eventually transform both our lives and the healthcare landscape in our community. I just didn't know it yet. 2 months after the emergency hearing, Lily and I moved into a modest 2-bedroom apartment across town. The divorce proceedings dragged on, with Mark fighting every provision despite clear evidence of my financial contributions. I had returned to the hospital, working regular shifts rather than the punishing overtime that had once funded the Wilson family lifestyle. Our apartment was sparsely furnished. A second-hand couch, a kitchen table with mismatched chairs and beds for Lily and me. But it was ours, free from the suffocating influence of the Wilsons. Each evening Lily and I would read together on her unicorn-patterned comforter, creating a new ritual to replace the ones we'd lost. "When do I have to go back to Daddy's?" she asked one night, her small fingers tracing patterns on my arm. "Sunday afternoon," I said, kissing her forehead. "But I'll pick you up Tuesday after school." She nodded solemnly. The custody arrangement, alternating weekends and shared weekdays, was difficult for her to understand. What she did understand was that her once united family was now divided, her grandparents now coldly distant when I arrived for custody exchanges. "Grandma says Daddy's company is having trouble," Lily mentioned casually, unaware of the significance. "Does she?" I kept my tone neutral, though the information sparked my interest. Without my financial infusions, Wilson family construction was likely faltering. That night, after tucking Lily in, I sat at our small kitchen table reviewing patient files. As an ER nurse, I'd encountered countless elderly patients struggling with at-home recovery, falling through healthcare cracks once discharged from the hospital. Many needed more support than occasional visiting nurse check-ins but didn't require full-time care. An idea that had been percolating for weeks suddenly crystallized. What if there was a service that bridged that gap? Specialized nursing care tailored to post-hospital recovery, with consistent caregivers who could catch complications before they required readmission? I opened my laptop and began researching state requirements for home healthcare businesses. The licensing process was complex but navigable with my nursing credentials. The startup costs, however, were daunting for someone rebuilding financially after divorce. A knock at my door interrupted my research. It was Jenny, bearing a bottle of wine and takeout containers. "Thought you could use dinner that doesn't involve chicken nuggets," she said, setting the food on the counter. I laughed, realizing I hadn't eaten since lunch. "You're a lifesaver." As we ate, I shared my business idea. "It makes perfect sense," Jenny said. "You've been talking about this gap in care for years." "I have. Every time you'd come over after a rough shift. If someone had just checked on Mrs. So-and-so daily, she wouldn't have been readmitted with complications. You've been developing this concept without realizing it." He was right. The idea had been forming throughout my nursing career, shaped by countless patients whose recoveries had been compromised by inadequate follow-up care. "The question is funding," I said. "I'd need to hire at least 2 other nurses to start, plus administrative support, insurance." Jenny tilted her head. "What about Dr. Phillips? Didn't she offer to help when you were going through the custody battle?" Dr. Phillips had indeed been supportive, even testifying to my professional dedication during the divorce proceedings. The next day I requested a meeting with her. "A specialized recovery service?" Dr. Phillips leaned forward, instantly engaged. "The hospital administration has been looking for ways to reduce readmission rates. They affect our Medicare reimbursements significantly." "Exactly. My service would fill the gap between hospital discharge and full recovery, with nurses who specialize in post-acute care." She tapped her pen thoughtfully. "Write up a proposal. I'll present it to the board as a potential partnership. If the hospital contracted with your service for certain patient populations, it could provide the stable income base you'd need to launch." 2 weeks later, armed with a detailed business plan, I presented to the hospital board. My hands trembled slightly as I distributed materials to the stern-faced administrators, but when I began speaking about patient care, my confidence soared. This wasn't just a business venture. It was the culmination of everything I'd observed throughout my nursing career. "Our readmission rates for patients over 65 are 22% higher than the national average," I concluded. Horizon Home Health could reduce those rates by providing specialized transition care, saving the hospital money while improving patient outcomes. After a brief deliberation, the board approved a 6-month pilot program. The hospital would refer eligible patients to my new company, providing enough guaranteed revenue to get started. Dr. Phillips caught me in the hallway afterward. "Congratulations. I knew they'd see the value." She hesitated. "There's something else you should know. I wasn't going to mention it, but given your history, Wilson Construction was contracted for our West Wing renovation. They've fallen behind schedule and over budget. The board terminated the contract yesterday." A strange emotion washed over me, not satisfaction exactly but confirmation. Without my financial management and infusions, Mark's family business was failing exactly as I'd anticipated. "Thank you for telling me," I said simply. The next month was a whirlwind of activity. I reduced my hospital hours to part-time, leased a small office space, and hired 2 experienced nurses who shared my vision for recovery care. We named the company Horizon Home Health, suggesting the promise of a new day for patients returning home. Our first client was Eleanor Jenkins, an 82-year-old who'd broken her hip and was being discharged earlier than she felt comfortable with. "The hospital says I'm ready, but I live alone," she fretted as I assessed her home for safety hazards the day before discharge. "That's why we're here," I assured her, arranging for grab bars to be installed in her bathroom. "You'll have a nurse visiting twice daily for the first week, then we'll reassess based on your progress." Eleanor's successful recovery became our first testimonial, followed quickly by others. Word spread among discharge planners and local physicians. By the end of the 6-month pilot, Horizon had served 48 patients with a hospital readmission rate 68% lower than comparable patients without our services. The hospital board renewed and expanded our contract. I hired 3 more nurses and an office administrator. We moved to a larger office space with a small training room where we could demonstrate care techniques to family members. Throughout this period of growth, my personal life stabilized into a new normal. The divorce finalized, with Mark granted less custody than he'd sought after evidence emerged of his parents' inappropriate influence on Lily during her stays. I purchased a small 3-bedroom house closer to Lily's school, creating a stable home base for us both. During a routine custody exchange 9 months after our separation, I noticed Mark looked distinctly worse for wear. His clothes wrinkled, his car in need of repair. "Dad's company is closed," Lily reported during dinner that evening. "Grandpa's really mad all the time." I nodded, unsurprised but careful not to show satisfaction in front of my daughter. "Changes can be hard for everyone, sweetie." Through mutual acquaintances I learned the full story. Without my hidden financial support, Wilson Family Construction had quickly accumulated debt. Mark's father had taken out a second mortgage on their home to cover expenses, only to lose a major contract, the hospital renovation, due to mismanagement. The business had filed for bankruptcy, leaving the extended family in financial turmoil. My emotions were complicated. These people had vilified me, accused me of betrayal, and torn apart my home based on their own projections and misunderstandings. A part of me felt vindicated by their downfall. Yet another part, the nurse, the caretaker, felt a twinge of empathy for their suffering. That empathy didn't last long. During a school event for Lily, Diane Wilson cornered me in the hallway, her expression bitter. "I hope you're satisfied," she hissed. "Our family business is ruined." I met her gaze steadily. The business was already failing when I was secretly supporting it. The only difference now is that I'm investing in my own future instead of yours. Her face registered shock, perhaps at my directness, perhaps at the confirmation of what she must have begun to suspect as their finances unraveled. "Mark never mentioned." "Of course he didn't," I interrupted. "He didn't know. He believed his father's business was successful and that his own work was enough to support our lifestyle. None of you ever questioned where the money was really coming from." I walked away, leaving her speechless in the school corridor. Meanwhile, Horizon Home Health continued to thrive. A year after launch, we were serving patients from 3 area hospitals. I hired a business manager to handle the growing administrative demands, allowing me to focus on care protocols and expansion opportunities. An unexpected opportunity arose when Dr. Phillips connected me with a regional healthcare network looking to reduce costs through improved transition care. They want to meet with innovative providers who can scale their services across multiple facilities, she explained. Your outcomes data is impressive enough to get you a seat at the table. The meeting led to a contract 5 times larger than our hospital agreement, requiring significant expansion. I took a calculated risk, securing a small business loan to lease a larger headquarters and hire additional staff, including a training director and clinical supervisor. 18 months after starting with just myself and 2 nurses, Horizon employed 23 healthcare professionals serving patients across our region. Our model was featured in a healthcare industry publication, highlighting our exceptional patient outcomes and cost-saving approach. The article included a professional photo of me standing with my core team outside our new offices. I looked confident and successful, a far cry from the exhausted, unappreciated nurse who had once silently funded her in-laws' lifestyle. 2 days after the article was published, I received an unexpected email from Mark's sister Bethany, the same sister whose car repossession I had secretly resolved years earlier. Sarah, I saw the article about your company. Congratulations. I'm reaching out because I'm in a difficult situation since Dad's business closed. My nursing assistant certification expires next month, and I was wondering if your company might have any positions available. I understand if you say no given our history. Bethany *. The irony wasn't lost on me. The family that had once looked down on my career now sought employment in my successful company. I considered ignoring the message entirely, but something stopped me. Not obligation or residual family feeling, but the recognition of an opportunity to demonstrate just how much I had accomplished on my own terms. I typed a brief reply. Horizon is always looking for qualified, hardworking individuals. You can submit an application through our website like any other candidate. Sarah *. Whether she applied or not didn't matter. What mattered was that I now had the power to make that choice. A power built on my own determination, expertise, and vision for a business that genuinely helped people during vulnerable moments in their lives. As I closed my laptop and prepared to leave for Lily's school concert, I realized I had created something more valuable than financial success. I had built a life defined by my own choices rather than others' expectations, a foundation solid enough to support both Lily and me far into the future. 3 years after launching Horizon Home Health, I stood in our newly expanded headquarters, surveying what we'd built. The space buzzed with purposeful energy. Nurses reviewing care plans, training sessions in progress, administrative staff coordinating schedules. We now employed over 40 healthcare professionals and served 5 counties across the state. Lily, now 8, had accompanied me to the office after school, working on homework in my corner office while I finalized preparations for tomorrow's healthcare job fair. As the largest home health provider in the region, we had a responsibility to represent our industry and recruit promising talent. Mom, can I design a poster for your booth? Lily asked, already reaching for the colored markers she kept in my desk. Absolutely. Maybe something about helping people recover at home. She nodded seriously, her forehead creasing with concentration as she began sketching. These quiet moments together were precious. My daughter witnessing the business I'd built from nothing, absorbing lessons about independence and determination without my ever having to articulate them. The next morning I dressed carefully in a tailored navy suit, professional but approachable. Lily's poster, featuring a colorful house with a heart inside and the words "Healing Better at Home with Horizon," was mounted prominently on our display. My team had already set up our booth when I arrived at the convention center. The annual Central Missouri Healthcare Recruitment Fair drew job seekers and employers from across the state. Horizon's prominent position near the entrance reflected our growing status in the regional healthcare community. We've got 20 interviews scheduled already, reported Melissa, our HR director. Plus walk-ins throughout the day. Perfect. Let's focus on finding those special candidates who understand our mission. Technical skills matter, but the right attitude toward patient care is essential. The fair opened and our booth quickly became one of the busiest. We were known not just for competitive salaries but for our supportive workplace culture and innovative approach to home health care. Young nursing graduates and experienced healthcare workers alike sought us out. During a brief lull, I stepped away to get coffee, scanning other booths as I walked. That's when I saw him, Mark, standing in the registration line, looking thinner than I remembered and considerably less confident. He wore a button-down shirt that had seen better days and clutched a stack of resumes like a lifeline. My first instinct was to avoid him, to slip away before he noticed me. But something, curiosity perhaps, or the security of knowing my position, made me stay put. I watched as he received his name badge and turned toward the main hall. The moment he spotted me was evident in his physical reaction. A slight stumble, eyes widening with recognition and something else. Embarrassment? Fear? He hesitated, clearly contemplating retreat, before squaring his shoulders and approaching. "Sarah," he said, his voice carrying a formality that had never existed during our marriage. "I didn't expect to see you here. It's a healthcare job fair, Mark. My company has one of the largest booths." Confusion crossed his face. "Your company?" Realization dawned slowly. Despite the article, despite his sister's email to me, which she'd apparently never mentioned to him, Mark didn't know. He had no idea that the prominent Horizon Home Health was my creation. "Yes, my company. Horizon Home Health Services. We're the largest specialized home healthcare provider in the region." He glanced down at the fair directory in his hand, then back up at me with dawning comprehension. "You're that Horizon? The one everyone's trying to get into?" "The very same." I sipped my coffee, maintaining eye contact. "What brings you to a healthcare job fair?" "Construction didn't work out." His shoulders slumped slightly. "Dad's business went under completely about 2 years ago. I've been picking up whatever work I can, retail mostly. But the pay isn't enough, especially with Lily's expenses." "So you're looking to change industries?" He nodded. "I took a certification course in medical equipment maintenance. Figured hospitals always need people to keep their equipment running." The irony was almost too perfect. Mark seeking employment in the very industry I'd built my success upon. Part of me wanted to dismiss him, to savor this reversal of fortunes. But the part of me that had grown stronger through rebuilding my life recognized that petty revenge would diminish my own hard-won dignity. "Technical services is a good entry point," I said neutrally. "Several hospitals here are recruiting for those positions." An awkward silence fell between us. Finally Mark spoke, his voice lower. "I owe you an apology, Sarah. A big one. When everything fell apart with Dad's business, when we couldn't make payroll or cover the loans, I started putting the pieces together. How we'd always somehow made it through tight spots when you were around. How everything collapsed after you threw me out and accused me of betrayal?" I finished for him. He winced. "Yeah. After that. Did your parents ever figure it out?" "Mom did, I think. She never admitted it outright, but she stopped talking about you altogether. Stopped blaming you for everything." He glanced at my company logo on a nearby banner. "She wouldn't be surprised by your success. Deep down, she always knew you were the competent one." Coming from Mark, this observation about his mother felt like a significant admission. Diane Wilson had been my most persistent critic, the one who had most effectively undermined my place in the family. "How is Lily doing with you?" he asked, changing the subject. "She always seems happy, but kids don't always show everything." "She's thriving," I said honestly. "Straight as, making friends easily, taking piano lessons. She's becoming quite the independent young lady." Pride and regret mingled in his expression. We'd maintained a civil co-parenting relationship for Lily's sake, but our interactions had been limited to logistics and essential information about our daughter. "I've noticed." He hesitated. "She talks about your business sometimes. How you help people get better at home. She's proud of you." That simple statement, that my daughter was proud of what I'd built, meant more than any professional recognition I'd received. "Listen," Mark said, glancing at his watch. "I have an interview in 10 minutes. But I wanted to say, I'm sorry. For everything. For not seeing what you were doing for my family all those years. For letting my parents turn me against you. You didn't deserve any of that." The apology was unexpected and I sensed genuine. 3 years ago I had fantasized about such a moment. Mark realizing what he had thrown away, acknowledging my worth. Now that it had arrived, I found the victory less sweet than anticipated. Not because forgiveness came easily, but because I no longer needed his validation to know my value. "Thank you for saying that," I replied simply. He nodded, turned to leave, then paused. "Your company, are you hiring for maintenance positions?" The question brought me full circle to our reverse circumstances. Mark was now asking me for employment, completely unaware that Horizon actually did have an opening in facilities maintenance for our growing headquarters. I could have dismissed him, could have savored telling him we had no positions available. It would have been a neat closing of the karmic circle. Instead, I made a different choice. We do have an entry-level maintenance position open. It's primarily for our main facility, not patient homes. I nodded toward our booth. Talk to Melissa, our HR director. Tell her you have experience with basic building maintenance from construction. Be upfront about the certification course. Surprise registered in his eyes. You'd consider me? After everything. Melissa makes the hiring decisions, I clarified. But Horizon is a meritocracy. Your application would be considered like anyone else's. He seemed about to say more when an announcement indicated the next round of interviews was beginning. Mark straightened his posture, a familiar gesture from our married days when he was trying to project confidence. Thank you, Sarah. I mean it. As he walked away, I returned to our booth, fielding questions from candidates and conferring with my team. Throughout the day, I caught glimpses of Mark at various interviews, his expression increasingly discouraged as the hours passed. Late afternoon, as the fair was winding down, Melissa approached me privately. You'll never guess who applied for our maintenance position. Your ex-husband. I know. I ran into him earlier. She raised an eyebrow. Want me to put his resume in the circular file? No, I said after a moment's consideration. Review him like any other candidate. If he's qualified and you think he'd do the job well, interview him. Are you sure? It could be awkward having him around. I thought about Lily, who still loved her father despite his flaws. I thought about the man I'd just seen, humbled, struggling but trying to rebuild. And I thought about the woman I'd become, confident enough in my own strength that I no longer needed to diminish others to feel secure. I'm sure. Just make it clear that he'd report to facilities management, not to me. And that professional behavior is non-negotiable. 2 weeks later, Mark started as a maintenance technician at Horizon Home Health's headquarters. Our paths rarely crossed professionally, and when they did, we maintained appropriate boundaries. What mattered was that Lily saw her parents modeling respectful interaction despite their history, a lesson more valuable than any revenge scenario. On a cool autumn evening 6 months later, I sat on the patio of my home, a spacious 4-bedroom house in a good school district, purchased entirely with the fruits of my own labor. Lily was inside practicing piano, the notes drifting through the open window. My laptop displayed the latest expansion proposal for Horizon, a new specialized service for pediatric patients transitioning from hospital to home. My phone buzzed with a text from a number I recognized as belonging to Diane Wilson. Asterisk, the roses in your front garden are beautiful. You always did have a green thumb. Asterisk. The unexpected compliment from my former mother-in-law, who must have driven by my house, represented her own awkward version of an olive branch. I didn't respond immediately, unsure whether I wanted to open that door even a crack. As Lily's music filled the evening air and the business proposal awaited my final approval, I realized that the greatest reckoning wasn't about proving my worth to the Wilsons. It was about recognizing that worth for myself, building a life of purpose, raising a daughter to understand her own value, and creating a business that genuinely helped people when they were most vulnerable. Success wasn't about watching others fail. It was about thriving on my own terms. I picked up my phone and typed a simple reply. Asterisk, thank you. They're Lily's favorite. Asterisk. Then I returned to my work, secure in the knowledge that I had built something meaningful from the ashes of betrayal, an empire of care, precisely when I had needed it most.